Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Mentor Podcast.com. Today, we're digging into Airbnb because you folks just keep coming with questions, and so we're trying to give you what you want. I have Daanish Azim here with me today, and he's going to make you an expert, get you set up and ready to go, and hopefully give you some tricks of the trade. So I don't know anybody that knows any more about you than you. So let's see, all about how Airbnb works into the real estate business.
Awesome. Number one, I appreciate you, Ron, for having me on the show. I've heard really good stuff about you. I've actually watched a few of your podcasts, so it's super informative. And a little bit about myself. I'm 28 years old from Florida. I've been in the Airbnb space for almost 3 years now. I got started in my journey in the middle of 2022. And short story, I mean, I've done a lot of different businesses over the course of being in entrepreneurship for the last 7-8 years. Got introduced to Airbnb, came across a random YouTube video by Grant Cardone, and he was interviewing someone about Airbnb arbitrage. Before that, I used to think that you need crazy amounts of money to get into Airbnb. But when I came across the video, the guy talked about Airbnb arbitrage, the model, and it got me very interested. Short story, I kind of got into the space, got into different programs, started learning more about it, and pretty much started the business. And 3 years later, slowly but surely have scaled my business to over 18 Airbnb properties. None of them that I own. It's all arbitraged, and doing pretty well with it now.
Okay, when you say arbitrage, what are you referring to, dude?
Yeah, so in like very simple terms, what Airbnb rental arbitrage is, instead of you owning or buying a property, you're simply renting a property from a property owner or like a building, getting their permission to legally sublease that property on a 1-year or 2-year lease. And then you're able to take that property, furnish it, design it, and then list it onto short-term rental platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com.
Right. So you're not buying them, you're just leasing them.
Correct. You're leasing them.
Okay. All right. Explain to us how Airbnb system works, and try to eliminate the risk, if you will, while you're at it. And how can anybody that's new get into the business like you did?
Yeah, so I mean, just like any other business, the number one thing someone has to do is really get educated. Whether, I always like to tell people, whether you decide to get educated through YouTube videos, whether you buy courses, whether you get into coaching programs or mentorships, the number one step always is going to be to get educated. And then number two, the simplest way to get started, like I've laid out for most of my people that I've taught, is a simple blueprint. Is like, number one, you want to get an LLC set up. Number two, if you have good credit, you can actually go get 0% business credit cards. And then number three is kind of coming down to knowing how to do market research and analyzing deals, which there's a lot of different tools you can use now, which one of the very popular ones that a lot of Airbnb hosts use is called airdna.co. And you can simply research and analyze a deal on there. And then the next step essentially comes down to basically finding a property that the landlord or the property owner is going to actually allow you to sublease their property with the right permission. And then from there, we would go about the furnishing process. So setting up the furniture, the staging correctly, getting professionals' pictures taken at the property, hiring the right teams in place. And then from there, we'd simply be able to make a listing on our Airbnb hosting profile the right way and start getting bookings. But I guess the main thing is, like, the way we mitigate the risk is really just being educated. Like any other business, the more educated you are, the less risk there is in the business.
Yeah. Okay. So today, on an average size house, what would you spend to furnish it?
Yeah, so just to give like the audience kind of an idea, to furnish a property, let's just say we're looking anywhere between a 1-bedroom and a 3-bedroom property. A one bedroom, you're probably spending in the range of like 4 to 5 thousand to furnish correctly. A two bedroom property, you might spend anywhere on average, probably about 6 to 8 thousand. And then a 3 to 4 bedroom property, you're usually spending maybe in terms of like 10 to 15 thousand to furnish that property. So those are usually average numbers if you're furnishing correctly.
Well, I know what my listeners are listening right now and thinking to themselves how they can spend very little money furnishing. Because they go to Goodwill stores and probably clean out their own house first.
Mhm.
I got it up, I got it set up, I got the furniture in it. Now, what site do I put it on?
So the main sites, I mean, like the most popular site, of course, with the most visitors is going to be Airbnb. 90% of my bookings come from Airbnb, but then the second and third main website that someone could list their short-term rental is definitely going to be VRBO and then also booking.com.
Okay. And so what do these sites do for me?
So I mean, essentially, it's there. These are platforms, right? So the business model is short-term rentals, but Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com are simply platforms that we can leverage to make our listing, and it's just gonna make the job easier. What in terms of like, for example, Airbnb. If you make a listing on Airbnb, you already are protected through their insurance called air cover. So if a guest ever damage your property or anything like that, they're protecting over $1 million of insurance in terms of damages if something happens to your short-term rental property. So the beautiful part is like you can make a listing, put it on a platform like Airbnb, have everything pretty much automated through even systems that Airbnb has inside of their platform, and automate most of it and still be protected through their air cover with insurance.
So Airbnb.com not only lists them, finds the customers, but also insures. What do they insure? Let's say the house burns down.
Yeah, so with that with a house burning down, they wouldn't cover that. So that's where you would have to have short-term rental insurance, or the property owner has their main insurance policy. But in terms of like air cover with Airbnb, protects you from like damages. So let's say a guest breaks a bed, or a guest puts a hole in the wall, or a guest that even stole a TV or something like that. As long as you can get proof from your cleaners, you're basically able to submit that claim and get paid out as long as that proof is there. Airbnb, even if the guest does not pay out, the Airbnb platform will actually pay you out with if you have the right proof to provide.
I didn't know that. So, exactly what you say they do not cover the house if the house burns down. So only the homeowner can have insurance for that if you're leasing it.
Right.
That's probably a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the insurance mess we have now here in Florida right now.
Correct.
Rates are getting ridiculous, and not just here. So that makes a case for actually leasing it, not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I can make a case for the other side of that sword, but only.
Yeah.
All right, so how long does it take you to get an Airbnb set up and running?
So I usually say, I mean, it of course it's gonna depend on the size of your property, but usually like a one bedroom that I've done ever is like it can take anywhere from average 3 to 5 days if you order all the furniture, you hire the right furniture building team. On a one bedroom, someone could probably build all the furniture in like 2 to 3 days. A two bedroom property, it might take on average maybe 3 to 7 days. And then if you're doing a little bigger house, like a 3 bedroom or a 4 bedroom property, it can range on average like 1 or 2 weeks. But the biggest thing is just having good systems in place. So like having the furniture delivered, then having the right team in terms of like furniture builders and furniture assemblers to go out and build all the furniture. Have a cleaner that's going to go clean the property, stage the property up, and then you want to go hire a professional real estate photographer that can go take the professional photos. And then once you have those photos back, you can essentially make your listing no matter where you are, make your listing on Airbnb and start pretty much get bookings coming in.
So who makes the listing, you or Airbnb?
You would make the listing on Airbnb. So yes, yourself, you would make the listing. You would set up like your titles, your descriptions, your amenities that your place offers, setting up your automation messages, all that kind of stuff. You would make it yourself on Airbnb's platform.
Okay, so I heard you a minute, oh, never mind, I forgot what you said now. All right, look, I'm brand new at this. So first I gotta find a house. Any suggestion on where I should look for that house in my city?
Yeah, so typically I recommend people like if you're starting the business, the best place to usually start is going to be in your backyard, so wherever whatever city that you live in. But let's say if you're in a city like New York, New York is very highly regulated. It's going to be very hard to do Airbnb or short-term rentals there. So ideally, if you can find a different market, which the best thing is with so much technology, like we can leverage tools, so you don't have to guesswork. Hey, what's a good city? Good city to do Airbnb short-term rentals. You can simply use tools like there's AirDNA, there's another one called Data.Rabu that you can use these tools to figure out, okay, what market is performing and then look at comparable listings. So that's what I always recommend people is like any market can essentially work as long as you can do the proper market research behind it, analyze it, and then actually know how to set up the listing in an attractive way.
I find that most people think Airbnbs have to be located in a tourist area. Which I know is not true. So it's really nothing more than a replacement for a motel room. People have their own privacy and their own space. And so Airbnb, once you get it set up, they do all of the work, they find the customers. And they pay you, what do they pay you nowadays?
So Airbnb is going to pay you out. So the Airbnb host service fee, they only take 3%. So let's say, for example, if $1,000 booking came in towards you, which is going to be consisting of your nightly rates and your cleaning fee, out of that $1,000, Airbnb would only take 3%, which essentially is like $30. So in your pocket, that's going to go to your bank. It's going to be $970. So it's a very small fee overall.
So how about these cleaners that do the swap and clean it up and get ready for the next person? Do they, is there a organized company out there that furnishes those, or where do you get those from? You don't know the city.
Yeah, so the way to go about hiring cleaners, because I always tell people like your cleaners are essentially the most important person inside of this kind of business. The best you can use a platform called Turno. It used to be called Turnover Airbnb, but now it's called Turno, and it's simply a website where like you can actually look for specifically Airbnb or vacation rental cleaners, and you can put the Airbnb property's address, how many bedrooms you have, how many bathrooms you have, the square footage, and there'll be a bunch of cleaners that will automatically reach out to you with their quotes, like how much they would charge. Let's say you have a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom in Dallas, Texas, and they would automatically reach out to you like, hey, per clean, per turnover, we would do $100 charge. And there'll be a bunch of cleaners that pop up. It'll show you their past reviews of other hosts that have left them reviews. It'll show you how far they live from the Airbnb property, and all that stuff. So the coolest thing is like you can actually use these professional websites like Turno to go hire a professional cleaner that's been in the business for a while. And then even on that platform, you can automate the scheduling. So your Airbnb calendar can actually sync on Turno. So now your cleaners also know exactly when guests check in and check out. That way you don't every single time have to text them like, hey, I have a guest checking out. Can you go clean? It's like they already know your calendar and they're part of your team. So they can go automatically do that.
Pretty inexpensive too, aren't they? So, what happens when you need things like the laundry wash, the bed sheets washed, and stuff like that are even outside the home? Do they do that?
Yeah, so typically if you have a good relationship with your cleaner, like they can do that kind of stuff. So typically like when they're gonna go for cleaning, they will if there's usually you'll want to have a washer and dryer inside of your property. And when they go for cleaning, they'll go out and do the washer, the laundry. But if they can't or they need to take an extra load, sometimes if you have good cleaners, they'll go take the extra laundry, take it with them, and then go clean it at their property or outside. And then for the next clean, they'll have that as like extra stock. So the biggest thing is just building that good relationship with cleaners where they're really like part of your team.
Yeah, okay. So you know, I mean, if I'm doing business, say, in one city, I use the same cleaner over and over then, right? Like
Yep. Exactly. So you want to have someone on your team. Typically, like I will have the same cleaner. I might have a backup just in case in my contacts, but I usually have that same cleaner that's going to go. Sometimes they will have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 extra cleaners on their team. So if they can't go for cleaning, they'll send someone from their team. But yes, typically I just have one cleaning team in a certain city that will go clean my properties.
What do you do about front door locks? How do they get into the property?
Yeah, so majority of the times with a front door lock, you want to have a keyless entry, whether you do like a smart lock or you do a keypad. Those are going to be the best solutions. So you never want to have a key if it's possible not to have a key. Always place a keypad lock or a smart lock where guests can literally just punch in their 4-digit code and get inside of the property with a keyless entry. That's going to be the best way.
Yeah, what I got on my house.
Yeah, exactly. So keypad or smart lock, definitely the best way when you're doing this as a proper business.
But how do you change that combination?
So with a smart lock, you can actually do it automatically through an app. So if you have a smart lock set up, the app can actually change the code every single time a guest checks in, which you can also set it up in a way where it will be the last 4 digits of someone's phone number when they book on Airbnb. Or you could just use a keypad that has the same code, which seems like it's a little bit risky for most people, but typically like these guests that are booking, their IDs and everything is on file. So it's a very, very rare chance that that guest is ever trying to get back into the property. And you don't have to mention that, hey, it's the same code. Like you can almost play as if that code that we gave you is just for your stay. So I have places where I just have a keypad lock. It's the same code, and I've never had any issues of like a guest trying to recheck in or anything like that because we act as if that code was just for their stay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't. Yeah, likely they want to come back anyway. People who want to steal stuff aren't the same people who want to rent an Airbnb from you.
Yeah, because all their IDs and everything is already taken for them to rent.
So how do you figure out what to charge?
So in terms of charging, I always tell people it's like you can either go down the amateur route, which the average person will place a property in Airbnb and they will decide what price to put. Let's say they have a nice 2-bedroom property in Texas near downtown. They believe like their property is worth $250 on the weekend, so they list every weekend at $250, and then weekdays they believe it should be $200, so they'll list every weekday at $200. But as like people that operate professionally, someone like myself, like I use a software tool. It's called Price Labs. So it's basically an AI tool that will price my property based on like supply, demand, events happening in the town, all these things. So almost every single day I have a different price, which is automatically calculated with this software called Price Labs. So that's the way I've done my pricing.
So how far in advance do you normally rent them?
So it depends. Like we'll leave the calendar open for 6 months. So like sometimes I'll have a booking that someone will book even 3 months in advance. But generally speaking, a lot of your bookings will usually come in the next 7 to 14 days is very typical. So if like today is almost May 1st, usually most bookings will come in between like May 1st and 14 is when people are going to book. But yes, occasionally you'll get some people that will book out 2-3 months in advance, especially if they're coming in groups.
Saying that most of your listings are coming in a couple of weeks before they arrive?
Yeah, so a lot of the bookings will happen in the next like 10-15 days. If my next 10-15 days aren't booked, usually a lot of bookings are happening in that time period. So it's not last minute always, but people are kind of booking towards last minute stays.
So what do you do if you get a month out and you got spots open?
If I have spots open from 1 month out, I typically don't worry about it. So if my next month is not booked, I'm not really worried about it because I have a pricing strategy that works. I'm always most worried about my next 5 to 10 days being booked. As long as my next 5 to 10 days are booked, I'm overall fine. But there's like a certain metric I like to carry. Like, let's say we're going into May 1st, a new calendar month. Usually a good rate to be at is being booked about at least 50%. So if I know I'm booked 50% going into a new month, I know I'm on track to usually hit 70 to 90% a month in occupancy, which is a pretty good rate to hit with properties in the short-term rental space.
All right. So what percentage would you say overall are you keep rented throughout the year?
Yeah, so among the way I price my units and the way I've set up the way I've done the business model, like even my last 30 days among my 18 properties, we averaged about 88% booked. So on average, we're getting booked probably about 25 to 27 days out of 30 days among like all the properties on average.
Well, then how do you account for the turnover day?
For the ones that are not booked.
Well, no, for the ones that are booked.
So the day that we have like a guest check in, same day as the same day that a guest is checking out.
Okay, I got you. Wow, what would one expect to make on a single story, 3 bedroom, 2 bath in a normal city?
Yeah, so on a 3 bed, 2 bath, if you set up everything correctly, you're in a good market, you do a good job with your design, your furniture, your photos, you know how to make a listing, you know how to price correctly. I mean, I've seen it will also depend on the season of your market, but usually on a 3 bed, 2 bath, it's very realistic to be able to make at least $2,000 to $4,000 a month in profit. That's a pretty realistic target.
Um, there's a lot of houses out there right now, Denise, that are financed, not over financed, maybe 90% financed.
Hmm.
And people are begging us to come buy their house. We're the only way they can get out of it. Realtors don't even have enough spread in it to list it. And sometimes you need something. We're talking about relatively new properties as well.
Hmm.
So, one can easily go out and just take over a loan, buy the house if they want to, or they could lease it. Well, their seller will do pretty much whatever you ask them to do. But there's no monthly cash flow in it because of the high interest rate and large financing. However, that wouldn't be true if there was Airbnb in it,
Hmm.
and then the payment that wouldn't be so insignificant or significant. So I'm trying to get a head around. Let's say I got a 3 bedroom, 2 bath that rents for $2,000 a month,
Hmm.
and I got it rented. I mean, that's the one tenant. I got it rented on Airbnb. Is there a formula you got? Does it worth twice as much? Is it worth 1.5 as much, more than you can get a tenant buyer? I don't know. If you're average.
So like what's the average a 3 bed, 2 bath can make if the rent's like 2,000 if we list on Airbnb? I mean, it depends on the market, right? So a lot of things are going to depend. Because there's some markets that short-term rental is not going to work. Like if you're kind of in the middle of nowhere in a very suburb area that there's not really travelers coming, doing Airbnb is probably not going to make sense. But if you're in a market where a good location can mean a bunch of things. Sometimes a good location is being by major university campuses or major convention centers or major hospitals or a downtown area or a beach. So in Airbnb with doing short-term rentals, it's like you have to be in a good location, but a good location can mean a bunch of things, not always just like a downtown. So if you're in a good location and a 3 bed, 2 bath, let's say we're paying $2,000 a month in rent, if we set up the furniture right the correct way, if we actually have professional photos taken, and then we make a good listings in terms of like having a nice title, having nice listing descriptions, knowing how to set up the pricing strategy the right way, I think it's very realistic on a property. You can probably make $4,000 to $6,000 in revenue, and you would be able to net about maybe 2,000 to 4,000 in profit, even with a 3 bed, 2 bath that your rent is like 2,000 a month.
Yeah, the location is pretty important.
Yep.
But most of our folks are not in tourist cities. So, anything that would attract people to the location that we're doing is something we should be looking for, not just any house anywhere in the city.
Yep, 100%. So location is probably one of the biggest factors to having success with the business.
Like I got a Mayo Clinic here. People always come in and out. I think that'd be a good place for one.
Yep.
I'm traveling to think. I'm rattling my brain for where in Jackson I put them. There's quite a few places actually. Like we got 2 colleges here. It's a dynamite business in its own. Colleges, do you do college students, rent to college students?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're in a market where there's a lot of younger students, college students, like, I mean, the real age for someone to rent on Airbnb is 18 plus. So as long as they have an ID and they're 18 plus, they're able to book. But you can have certain restrictions if you want to do like 21 plus or something like that if you want to make your listing to set up that way. But if I am in a market where I am near major universities and I know there's a lot of college students 18 to 21, 25-year olds. I will let young students rent the property on a short-term basis. But the biggest thing is just having very strict guidelines. So when you're making a listing, you're setting up strict guidelines, like letting them know, like, hey, if you do smoke in the property, $1,000 fee. If you do throw a party or any kind of event, $1,000 fee. If you bring in pets that we don't authorize, $500 fee. So if you can set up your listing in a way where you are basically putting out these disclaimers, like, hey, if you do any of this stuff that we don't want you doing at the property, and we find this out through our outdoor camera or neighbors or anything, you will be hit with these fees. So when these younger guests or anyone that's looking to book your property, when they see these guidelines and they have to accept them before actually booking the property, if they know they're going to come in there for smoking or whatever, they typically won't book the property because you have these strict guidelines in place. And the last thing they want to do is get hit with these fees.
Yeah, that's a whole new world, college students. I've got so many students actually doing college student rentals now. They love it because number one, they're responsible for keeping it clean themselves, and number two, they're responsible for getting more tenants to live in the same house with them.
Yep.
So this technically is a business that you work from your home, if you're in a different city. And all you need to do is get control of the property, get it ready to go. You just put furniture in it, and I'm sure you got a list of stuff that and you put a lock on it, and put cameras on. How many cameras do you put inside?
Yeah, you can't put cameras inside, but you could do outdoor cameras like Ring doorbells or Blink cameras. You could do outdoor cameras, but yes, you wouldn't ever be able to put cameras inside the property.
Okay. All right. So take a little money to get started. Basically, whatever furniture costs and a couple of services, and locks and the like. Therefore, anybody can do this, even if they don't have good credit, because nobody's going to check it. They do need some money.
Yep.
But not that much as money goes. And these things are permanent as long as the seller wants to lease the property to you.
Yep.
Now, you don't mind if I suggest that we actually buy those properties, do you? And we learn how to buy them right, with no liability, no credit check. I've got about 8 of them in the last 2 months that we can buy if we want to. All nice houses, all less than 2 years old, all buyers who've been in there. Most of them are brand, some of them brand new, some of them just not very old at all. They're perfect for this, as far as I can see. Kind of where they're at, I guess. So you probably got some training on this subject, don't you?
Yeah, so I've been doing Airbnb for almost going in on 3 years now, and then I've been overall for the past year and a half, I've also been like kind of coaching and mentoring other people on how to actually do the business, helping them like step-by-step process. Just in the last year, we've probably helped about 50 people get into their first Airbnb, helped about 30 to 40 of them hit Superhost, and got dozens of them actually now making over 10K a month on the platform. So I've coached and kind of mentored people step by step on like how the business actually works. That way they can actually have the right blueprint and the right guidance to know how to actually run this kind of business with the Airbnb arbitrage model.
So what kind of training do you have?
So for me, I mean, I've set up a whole program around teaching people. So like I have an educational school course, which is like video format. And then I also, people that get into the program is like I work with them one-on-one with myself and then also another coach inside of my program where we host a lot of Zoom calls with them. We'll analyze deals with them, show them how to make a listing, how to hire the right teams in place, how to set up their pricing, how to set up their automation messages, how to find deals. So pretty much from like step 8, taking someone that doesn't know pretty much anything about the business to step Z on how to actually make a listing, how to set it up, how to actually get bookings, and how to automate majority of the business.
That makes sense. So if you're training at the time, you do it, study at home, or you meet in a hotel room somewhere, or?
No, I just do it from home. So like a lot of my students are all virtual. So like a lot of calls we just do is through Zoom calls. But yeah, I've actually majority of my students, like a lot of them I've never actually met. It's all just Zoom calls that we've done, just help them step by step in a process. and that's majority of it.
So, I'm trying to hit my head around the kind, how many times a year do you do this training? Is it a 1 day or 2 day or 3 day, what is it?
No, so I won't like really do like a training. I basically will bring someone if that's interested in wants to get coaching from me, and I'll basically work with them like directly one-on-one. So
Okay,
I'll take on maybe like 5 students a month, and I'll work with them like one-on-one, helping them having my phone number, and just working with them through their process on how they can start and scale uh into Air into the Airbnb arbitrage business.
so your training was all worth it.
Yes. So yeah, basically just work with them like directly one-on-one. And then I've just made free trainings on like YouTube on how someone can get started and stuff like that. I've just put it on like my YouTube channel in terms of like basic training on how the business works.
You're gonna go give away something, right?
Yeah, so they're gonna go to thementorpodcast.com to get that.
TheMentorPodcast.com, and what are we gonna give away?
We're gonna give them away a free training and a PDF on a simple 4-step process on how they can actually start their own Airbnb arbitrage business.
That's cool. And there they can find out about your training as well, right?
Yep.
Tell me something. You get to start all over again 3 years ago. You know now what you didn't know then. What would you do next?
The biggest thing I would do is I would tell someone number one is get educated, and depending on how you want to get educated is do you want to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, do you want to buy courses, or would you rather just shortcut your learning process by finding a coach or mentor that can help you? Number two would be if you have good credit is learning how to leverage your credit to get 0% business credit cards, and then leveraging that money to go out and get into the Airbnb to get Airbnb short-term rental properties. That way you can go scale that business to, whatever your goal is, whether it's making an extra 5K, 10K, 20K a month. As long as you can get access to the capital with 0% credit, you can scale the business pretty quickly.
Yes. Now, to add to that, from my point of view, it's great to have a credit card for sure. You can buy the furniture on the credit card and so forth. We don't guarantee debt, and plan on the biggest mistake you can make. But it's a guaranteed debt to go buy furniture. That's not the kind of debt I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big debt, the debt that can wipe you out.
Correct.
We're going to continue on with you. We're probably going to line up a webinar where you have more time to tell what you do. But I don't think I heard an answer there. What would you do if you started all over and you know what you know now? What was the answer? What did you do wrong when you started?
What I did wrong when I started was I was looking into too many different markets at once, versus I would recommend someone to like focus on maybe 1 or 2 cities or states that you want to target, and then very deeply dive into doing like a proper research and analysis, and then also learning how to actually set up teams in place that can handle majority of your work versus trying to do everything yourself.
Right.
So the biggest mistake I made was like I didn't automate correctly when I started, and I was constantly messaging guests and dealing with cleaners, when later I found out, hey, you can actually automate majority of all this process.
Hey man, don't feel bad. It took me 20 years to get automated.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started, there was no automation. Wasn't even
Yeah.
all right. You guys watching now, if you don't know who I am and you happen to join this podcast, I'm Ron LeGrand, and if you want to learn how to go buy these houses to put short-term rentals in, you come to me, and you're going to learn how to do it without credit. I'm telling you, I got about 8 or 9 of them within the last 2 months. I perfect put these in, and the good areas of town. I don't think all of them are where there's a tractor factor, but they're in nice neighborhoods, relatively new. Sellers let us do whatever we want, and we always, when we take over a house, either buy it, or at least if we tell the seller that just take the furniture you want and leave the furniture you want. Maybe we should start putting more pressure on them to leave the furniture
Yeah.
that they don't want. Maybe even buy the furniture from them cheap if you're buying the house. Anyway, really, Airbnb is just another exit strategy,
Yep.
but it's another income stream as well. And one that you're not taking a lot of risk in. In fact, you're not going to guarantee debts. You're not really taking much of any risk as you go. And I'm surprised where I see all these Airbnbs, and I looked them up online here in Jacksonville. Some of them are in friggin' war zones, man. There's no way I'd wanna rent somebody a house there with a, end up dead before.
Yeah.
No, anyway, common sense will help you with that. So, find me guys at ronlegrand.com. If you want our lesson on terms, ronlegrand.com/terms. Gosh, I could go on for hours. You could probably spend 5 years on YouTube looking at all my videos, but I've just been around so long, I'll be everywhere, so not hard to find. All right, don't we need last words for our audience? Next word just a little bit over now anyway, but I don't care. Interesting guy to talk to and full of knowledge.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Appreciate you having me on.
Okay. Any bit of advice for our audience?
Biggest advice. I mean, I used to think that real estate meant you need like a lot of money to get started. But when I found about the Airbnb arbitrage rental model was like, hey, you don't really need a crazy amount of money to get started. And the quicker you can get started in any industry that's going to get you to your goals, it's like the biggest step I recommend new people is just learning to get started. Like that's probably people's biggest struggle is like they're overthinking or over analyzing everything. Whereas if you just take step 1, eventually you'll get to step 2 and eventually get to step 10.
You are right. And getting started does not mean you need a bunch of money. I'm telling you, I'm buying houses. Thousands of my students are buying them. All they're doing is paying the closing costs. So why would I want to rent one when I can buy one, get appreciation, depreciation, debt paid down, all that cash flow and all of that, and get the seller out of your life forever for that matter. So come to me and I'll teach you how to do all of that. We do it every week. Buy houses, value them on your credit. That's what we're all about here. And frankly, this is a great business opportunity for people looking for a way to make money without having to get out of bed and go to work every day. I think it's a beautiful addition to anybody going the real estate business. All right, well, thanks again. Appreciate you, and we will be working with you soon to carry your message further for those who are looking for it.
I appreciate it, Ron. I really appreciate you having me on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, sir.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.